What's up guys, Agent here with the third PTS patch notes review video for Greymoor. This is patch notes version 6.0.0. This one's going to be going over the itemization and changes that have been made in the Greymoor PTS. There are two other PTS review videos. The first one is going over all the changes that have been introduced in the Greymoor chapter specifically. The second one is taking a look at just generic combat changes and skill changes, primarily focusing more on the vampire and werewolf changes here. This one's taking a look at the itemization changes that have been made to existing sets already in the game. As always, links in the description below to the full patch notes if you want to read the entirety of the patch notes at your own leisure. So, starting things off here with consumables, they updated Alliance War source potions to reflect max level crafted in crown potions, whatever. We're more interested in item sets, so before we get started, I do want to read the developer comments here. Many item sets in the following section have received numerous bug fixes or performance-related enhancements to make them less taxing on a server to track. While making these changes, we have continued our standardization to any of the affected sets to ensure their bonuses meet our intended goals with our set bonus efficiency budget. For example, many sets related to heavy attacks had their scripting updated to be less taxing to track for the server, so during this pass we made sure we brought them up to speed with other set standards. You can expect to see this trend continue every major update until we complete this pass with item sets. Now, and those of you guys who are not aware of what they are talking about with their quote-unquote set bonus efficiency budget, essentially they're trying to make every set as strong as your typical 5-piece set. So monster helm sets in particular, because they are 2-piece bonuses, you will see a lot of them getting changed in order to make them more reminiscent or equal to 5-set bonuses. Now this might be a buff to some, might be a nerf to others. It remains to be seen because it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. That's what they mean when they say set bonus efficiency budget. So they listed all these in alphabetical order. So we have Aegis of Gallenway. So this set in its perfect version now grants power to 11 allies and no longer has a chance to proc but has a 2-second cooldown. So might be useful for tanks now. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out, whether other support roles have been changed or not. Support sets, I should say. Emberplasm now grants health regen as well, and they increase the bonus of that regen. Archmage increases your magicka regen by 360 for 10 seconds, rather than just granting flat magicka. Ashen Grip now deals damage in the same size as Fiery Breath does. Fix a couple of issues with Barajas. Frogger's Rest increased the total healing done to 19,404 over its duration. Elfbane no longer works with channel effects or beams, so this includes Zaan. So Zaan is no longer impacted by Elfbane, so Elfbane's a dead set, more or less. You can still run it with the Grothar, but in terms of running it with Zaan, not really an option anymore, so still could be useful for mag decays, but generally speaking, the main draw for running Elfbane has been pretty much is dead. Ember Shield reduced the armor granted, decreased the damage done, and doesn't have a proc chance anymore. Grace of Gloom, they increased the duration of the set, and they increased the cooldown. Hand of Mephala now has a negative telegraph. Healing Mage, more accurately proc off of abilities, fix an issue. Impreg now grants 1650 crit resistance instead of 2000. Savage Gladiator now increases your weapon damage by 1475 against targets under 25% health, rather than increasing weapon damage with just light and heavy attacks. Might be interesting for classes with a lot of executes. Taking a look at you, Stamina Nightblade, might be interesting. Leeching Plate fixed a couple of issues here. Orgdom Scale now increases your health regen and armor while at or below 60%, rather than just increasing your health regen. Queen's Elegance have been completely reworked. Your light attacks now reduce the health, magic, or stamina cost of your next ability use by 10%, and fully charged heavy attacks increase the damage of your next direct damage attack by 2610. Not sure if this is for better or worse. Probably still not going to see much use here overall. Reactive decreases your damage taken by 33% for 5 seconds after being affected by a disabling effect with a 20-second cooldown, and now works with snares. Robes of the Hiss has been slightly redesigned to apply heal over time that heals for original value every second for 5 seconds after being hit by a disabling effect. Robes of Transmutation now grants 1400 crit resistance for 5 seconds rather than 1304 for 20. Savage Werewolf, fix an issue there. Central Defender, fix an issue there. Sergeant's Mail, they increase the damage bonus for the fully charged heavy attacks. Tormentor now more active describes what abilities it works with and has had its proc condition expanded to work with more abilities that fall into the standard type it was designed to. So This should now work with charges, leaps, teleports, and pulls, but it will continue to not work with blinks such as streaks. So this should make Werewolf Tank viable now that it works with charges. So for those of you guys who want to play Werewolf Tank, your time is nigh. Vampire Lord has been updated, so it now increases the bonuses and penalties of your vampire stages by the following amounts based on your vampire stages. You can see the values there. Winterborn, they fixed an issue there. Moving on to Monster Helms. Big changes here coming up here. So again, they're trying to update it to be more comparable to 5-piece sets in regards to your set bonus efficiency standards. So, Baylorg increases weapon and spell damage equal to the amount of ultimate spent rather than double the amount spent, and also grants penetration, both physical and spell, up equal to 23 times the amount spent. So if you spent 100 ultimate, you get 2300 physical and spell pen. They increase the duration to 12 seconds. Bloodspawn, they reduced the armor granted to 3300, they reduced the ultimate on proc to 8, and they reduced the duration and cooldown to 5 rather than 6. So big nerf to Bloodspawn. Mainly looking at PvP nerf here. It wasn't really used very often in PvE, mostly just for ulti-gen builds, but for PvP this is a pretty big nerf to a very commonly used Monster Helm set. Chokethorn now heals for more over a longer period of time. They increased the proc chance to 15% and reduced the range of the beam to 15%. Lonely House now grants 300 spell or weapon damage while in the ring. The outer ring now deals more damage, and they removed the proc chance from the set. Earthgore now heals for slightly less over a longer period of time to reduce the burst potential, and they also reduced the cooldown to 20 seconds. So in terms of raw healing done per second, it is a fairly hefty nerf, but they also reduced the cooldown as well. So in terms of burst heal, not as strong here, but it's still possibly useful. Engine Guardian now restores 550 magicka or stamina per tick rather than 1204. They increased the healing up though. They reduced the range of the beam 15 meters, and they fixed a few issues here and there. Grundwolf, they decreased the resources return to 700 and 350 instead of 1,000 and 500. Lambris, they significantly buffed the damage done by each meteor shower to 2015, but you cannot proc both at the same time. You can only have one active at each time. They increased the proc chance 33%, and they fixed a few issues here and there. This also will now be extended by Elfbane. The fire proc, I should say. Infernal Guardian, they decreased the damage done by each mortar, and they also fixed an issue with Hardening Enchant. Kjelnars, they fixed an issue here where it could fail to inherit some bonuses like Ancient Knowledge. Krogs increased the damage of the set up a little bit, 1345 from 1300. Lord Warden, they reduced the armor bonus of the one piece to 1487, again to kind of reflect the armor set efficiency bonus. And they decreased the armor bonus from the proc to 3180 from 3870. Marsluck, they reduced the damage down to 7200 from 8000. Wall of Inferno was streamlined. The damage is now always deals 3865 damage over each ability's duration, which is 2 seconds, which is a nerf. And they'll now follow a pattern to its attacks rather than just having a random chance to use each of them. They increased the proc chance. You can't target a Daedroth anymore, and they also changed the one piece to magicka instead of health. Chudan, they reduced the one piece bonus to 1487 armor. Molekina was buffed a little bit, 560 to spell and weapon damage instead of 516. Still the original effect though, they did not change it to the new effect from the light and heavy attack changes. Mother Shonate, I don't know how to pronounce that, increased the magic granted up to 822. Nerien'eth now deals more damage, they increased the proc chance, and the one piece now grants spell damage instead of max health. This is actually a significant change. Nerien'eth might actually be pretty strong now. Now the proc condition is direct damage, so it is going to be limited to certain classes that use certain spambles, but it is looking pretty strong right now, Nerien'eth. Bogged into Night Flame, they decreased the healing done per tick by a small amount, and they increased the proc chance. Pirate Skeleton, they nerfed the one piece armor bonus. They decreased the cooldown of the proc to 15, and they increased the proc chance to 10%. Scourge Harvester, or Malabeths, they decreased the damage of the set to 5715 over the duration, and increased the proc chance. Celine's got a buff to the damage. Celatrex increased the damage and no longer has a proc chance. They increased the cooldown to 6 seconds though. Then over Kugams, they removed the proc chance. They reduced the tick count of the restoration by 1, and they increased the magic and stamina restore to 125 per tick instead of 115. So this should end up being a nerf to the overall amount of resources you get back from Rukugams. Shadowrend no longer applies minor maim, and instead reduces damage done by 5% for 2 seconds. This is a unique debuff and cannot stack for multiple Shadowrends. They reduced and streamlined the damage from the Clanfear's attack to 800 per hit instead of 3240, and they reduced the cast time of the Tail Sweep attack and reduced the cooldown of it. Swan and Mephala, they increased the damage per tick of the set to 1340 instead of 1096. Stonekeeper, they reduced the amount of resources restored to 2480 from 5350, but they also reduced the cooldown stacker to 250 milliseconds, or every quarter of a second, down from 1 second, to better match the cooldown on blocks cost. But it seems like it still has that full cooldown time there. 14 seconds, I should say, between each stack here. So you should be able to get it up faster. So overall, this should end up being a nerf overall to the amount of resources that you get back, but you're able to get it back a lot faster now. Stormfist, they increased the damage of the final explosion to 8470, and the shock damage portion of the set now bypasses spell resistance entirely. Swarm Mother changed the one-piece bonus to max magicka and max stamina instead of stamina regen. Symphony Blaze now restores 570 resources per tick. The cooldown of 18 seconds is now applied per target rather than overall. This is actually a really big change for Symphony now. But as it operates right now for Symphony of Blades, once it procs, you are on an 18-second cooldown before you can get a second proc to happen. With this change, basically, it can proc on everybody, except for you, obviously. So you can proc it on 11 people for that 570 resources per tick, and the cooldown of 18 seconds is now per target. So let's say you proc it on Jimmy, and then 15 seconds later, you proc it on Sally. You have to wait 3 seconds, and then you can proc it again on Jimmy, but Sally has to wait that full 18 seconds again. So each person now has an 18-second cooldown. This basically means Symphony of Blades can be wore on one support role now, rather than having multiple support roles wearing it. This does open up a little bit of build diversity now, in terms of modular helm sets for each of those support roles. Thurvicon, they reduced the damage per tick of this set down to 100 instead of 430, and they increased the cooldown to 16 seconds. So no longer can we get 100% Minor Defile to Minor Maim, with only a 50% uptime now with Thurvicon. Tremorscale, they increased the damage up to 6,000, they increased the cooldown to 8 seconds, and enemies hit by damage now have their physical resistance reduced by 2395 for 8 seconds, rather than being snared for 70%, and they removed the proc chance from this set. This makes it pretty interesting for stamina-heavy groups now, because now you can have a tank wear Tremorscale, because if I remember correctly, the proc condition for Tremorscale is taunting. So you can just taunt every 8 seconds, and you can have that physical resistance debuff now. So this should be pretty interesting for stamina-heavy groups, and now you have a new debuff monster helm set to wear for you tanks out there. Might want to consider picking up a set of Tremorscale now. Troll King, they reduced the health regen granted to 925, down from 1548. They fixed an issue where it had a range limit. Falcon Scoria now grants spell pen on the one-piece bonus, and they reduced the splash damage down to 3535. Beldreth now deals more damage per spore, just a little bit, 10,752 up from 10,320. They also reduced the cooldown to 8 seconds. Zaan, another big change here. They decreased the initial damage of the set to 2010, down from 3440, but they increased the damage scaling bonus to 100% per stack. They increased the duration of the beam to 6 seconds. Note that we are still limited to a maximum of 5 stacks. They increased the proc chance to 33%. Now, just looking at the numbers here, and I did the math earlier when I was researching for this video, this is a buff to Zaan. So this should end up buffing Zaan. I think it ends up being, I want to say it was like 3,000 additional damage on tooltip damage. So this is a buff to Zaan. Now, arena weapons. There's some big changes coming up with arena weapons here. So for the Asylum weapons, Chaotic Whirlwind now envelops yourself with a whirlwind for 6 seconds, which strikes out to 3 random enemies every second, dealing up to 2675 physical damage after the 10-second cooldown. The perfect version no longer has a unique value and instead grants up to 666 weapon crits. So Asylum perfect weapons were a little bit unique among the perfected weapons, in that the perfect versions basically had slightly improved variants, had better values than the non-perfect versions. Here they basically are saying both the perfect and non-perfect unique bonuses are the same. The perfect version just gets an additional armor bonus, essentially set bonus. Concentrated Force, the perfect version no longer has a unique value and instead grants up to 103 spell damage, and they fixed 2 issues. First one was the bar swap bug, where it would not apply if you bar swap before your force post landed. The second one majorly impacts mag decays. Basically, there was a bug where whenever you procced Asylum, it would basically give everything that has a chance to proc a status effect that guaranteed chance to proc. So if you had 3 mag decay ticks that deal flame damage, and you happen to get the proc happen, those 3 ticks of the dot damage would proc burning, which would give you more sustain. So this is actually a really, really big nerf to the Asylum Staff here, because now the Perfect Asylum Staff now has these 3, every 3rd cast of Force Pulse has that unique effect now. You get the additional spell damage, sure, but the big draw of the Asylum Staff was every 2 casts you get that additional damage here. The 2 changes here, one of them is okay, the other one is a big hit to the mag decays. The first fix here, which was allowing each elemental attack to proc its stats effect here. So Asylum Staff, no longer very useful for mag decays. It is still probably going to be strong on mag decays, but not nearly as strong as it was, or is currently in Harrow Storm. Defensive posture, they increased the base restore to 2200 magicka and the maximum restore to 6600. This is the sword and board, and gives you max stamina on the perfect version. Discipline Slash reduced the maximum ultimate return from the set to 12, down from 15. Fixed a couple of issues here. This is the two-handed set, by the way. The perfected version no longer has unique value and instead grants max stamina. Piercing Spray. Enemies hit by arrow spray now have their physical resistance reduced by up to 6600 against incoming bow attacks for 10 seconds. The perfect version grants physical penetration. Timeless Blessing. This is the Restoration Staff. They reduced the cost reduction of the set to 21%, and again, no unique value for perfect version and gives you max magicka instead. Black Rose Prison Sets. Gallant Charge. This is the sword and board. It reduced the perfect version's armor to 1190. That's the additional set bonus. So these already have the additional set bonuses. Mender's Ward reduces the duration of major vitality to 2 seconds, and they reduce the magical regen you get. Radial Uppercut. This is the two-handed. Now deals 45% of damage dealt with uppercut to all nearby enemies, rather than 100% to only one. So pretty strong splash damage here now. They reduced penetration bonus. Spectral Cloak now increases damage done and reduces damage taken by 10% for 2 seconds when dealing damage with Blade Cloak. They also reduce the stamina regen you get. This is a pretty interesting change here. So this is a unique 10% additional damage done, as well as a unique damage reduction bonus. So should be pretty interesting to see. I don't think this is going to make its way onto stamina DPS toolkits, but you never know. It does require some testing, obviously. Virulent Shot increase the damage from this set does to 65% of the damage done to your scatter shot. They reduce the weapon crit bonus. Wild Impulse, the Destruction Staff. They increase the damage done by this set to 3965, up from 3333. They reduce the spell pen that you get from that. Dragonstar Arena. Now the Dragonstar Arena and the Maelstrom Arena sets, they now all have perfect versions, so they add in that 1 line of additional set bonus here, as well as changes to the unique bonuses as well. So Caustic Arrow, this set now grants up to 330 weapon damage against targets affected by Poison Arrow. Destructive Impact, this is the Destro Staff. The set now grants 600 spell damage for 4 seconds after casting Destructive Touch. They reduce the cost reduction granted to 10%, down from 30%. This is actually pretty big. This is a huge buff, essentially, to the Dragonstar Arena Destruction Staff here. We might see Destructive Touch be a spamble, perhaps, or we're going to end up using it every 4 seconds. Remains to be seen how it's going to play out here. Grand Rejuvenation, the Resto Staff grants up to 117 magicka stamina instead of 100, and now grants max magicka. Puncturing Remedy, this is the sword and board, increases the healing granted by this set to 6130, up from 2500. They increase the duration of the armor bonus to 5 seconds. The armor granted from the set will now incorporate overhealing into its calculation, ensuring it will always grant a benefit when engaged with what? Gina, I gotta proofread these. The set also grants 3% healing taken on the perfect version. Stinging Slashes, this is the dual wield set. Now increases any instance of damage done with Twin Slashes by 2102 rather than just the bleed damage. Perfect version grants you weapon crit. Titanic Cleave, the two-handed set, increased the stacking damage bonus of the set up to 1550, increase the target cap up to 24, up from 6. So they're going to monitor how this, may impact large groups. Perfect version grants physical penetration. The Maelstrom Arena, this is going to be, this is what a lot of you guys are looking for right now. Cruel Flurry, the dual wield set, increases weapon and spell damage up to 1690 instead of 1000. Perfect version grants weapon damage. Again, we'll see whether this makes its way onto the stamina toolkit or not. Crushing Wall, the Destro Staff, they increase damage bonus of the set to 1353 up from 1341. Oh boy, an extra 12 damage. The perfect version grants Spell Pen, the most useless trait for magicka DPS. So, not really going to be worth farming for the perfect version of the VMA staff, at least. Merciless Charge, this is the two-handed set. Increase the damage done by this set to 1032 over its duration, up from 7200. Damage done is now a bleed. The perfect version grants you physical penetration. Precise regeneration, this is the Resto Staff. The decrease in magic granted from this set to 500, down from 800, but they remove the cooldown from this set, but it cannot proc from simultaneous critical heals. This set now has a perfect version which grants Spell Crit, as you can imagine. Rampaging Slash, decrease the magicka and stamina restore from the set to 1904, down from 2000. This grants magicka and stamina regen. This is the Sword and Board set. Thunderous Volley, this is the bow set here. This set now increases the damage done of your volley by 430, increases by 143 per tick, set at 230 and 110 respectively. This now has a maximum stack of 8, rather than continuously stacking, and the perfect version as a weapon crit. Weapon crit is obviously more useful than Spell Pen, but it's still not going to be worth running just because you're on your back bar for a very limited amount of time as a stamina DPS. So again, I would not recommend spending the time to farm for the VMA bow. Now, in terms of the overall damage done on the tooltip, this is a buff. I did do the math again, much like with whatever that other set was, Zaan. This is a buff to the VMA, so you are going to end up dealing more damage with the VMA, both with Arrow Barrage and Endless Hail. And the final two things here, Impen is now 172 instead of 258 for each armor piece. Then pets can inherit Bloodthirsty. We already covered that in the skills section of PTS videos. But that's pretty much it. So the actual big changes here with the Maelstrom and DSA weapons here with the perfect versions. For Maelstrom, don't even bother farming for the perfect versions. You're on your back bar for such a little amount of time, and the bonuses are actually so small that it's not worth farming for them at all. You might as well just run normal Maelstrom Arena and get the non-perfect versions and just stick with that. Yes, technically speaking, the perfect versions are going to give you more DPS, but even for Thunderous Volley, you're talking about maybe like 0.2% of an DPS increase. Really not worth the time and effort to farm for perfected VMA if it's introduced. To be honest, if this was while your Endless Hail was active, while Body was active, you gained 66 weapon crit, then yes, it would be worth farming for it because the effect would be active on both your front and back bar. But as it stands right now, these effects are only active on the bar you have the weapon on, so it's not worth farming for these Maelstrom weapons because these are typically back bar weapons. Now, on the other hand, the Destructive Impact for Dragonstar Arena. This is something you're going to want to get in the perfect version here because of that additional spell damage. This would probably be a front bar weapon here, so you'd basically be looking at a 5/5, and then you have the DSA staff on the front bar, and then the Maelstrom staff on the back bar here. So it will possibly be worth farming for the perfect version of the DSA staff. So that is the only weapon I would possibly recommend getting the perfect version for. That's the DSA Inferno staff. And Lightning staff as well, in case you want to get two versions of the staff, one for single target and one for trash fights. But overall, quite a few itemization changes here, mainly because they're trying to bring everything to their sort of set bonus efficiency standards here. So quite a few changes here and there. The big ones are obviously to Zaan, the DSA weapons, the Maelstrom weapons, Ethereum weapons in general, but the big ones are to Zaan for magic DPS, Tremorscale for tanks, Symphony of Blades for support roles in general, and for stamina, I think the big ones are going to be they just buffed Selene, they buffed Beledreth, they nerfed Marshlock, but Marshlock should still be pretty strong here. So overall, the itemization changes are going to be the big things that are going to impact DPS rather than skill changes here. But that is it for this section of the PTS patch notes review. The other two videos took a look at the skills and overall gameplay changes. The other one took a look at all the changes that were introduced with the Greymoor chapter release. Links in the description below to those two videos if you want to take a look at those. And again, link in the description below to the PTS patch notes so you can read all of it to your heart's leisure. That concludes this video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next dungeon.